In HS2 terms, it's very clear for me, as someone who's operated in South Yorkshire for 15 years, that the local authorities need to get their acts together and decide where that station is going to be located. Is it going to be in the city centre, or is it going to be available? Leeds, Manchester, all the other stations that are on the group have sorted it out. They've got investment plans, they've got master plans for their stations. They're miles ahead of where the South Yorkshire station discussion is. They need to catch up.
It is for the local authority to pitch and to do that in a coordinated way. And without that, government are making this, they will impose a decision without the local authority taking that lead themselves, which is a prime example about how that was done at Oldham.
I think a local authority would be mad not to seize the opportunity and drive the debate, because the location of a station is absolutely critical.
You don't really have the same kind of strategic authority in the north as we do in London. So there's a need for a great deal of thought about the collaborative working that's going to be required. And the master planning around the different, not just Manchester Piccadilly, but the other stations as well. And all that will require a review of the local plan policies, and also require a review of the national policy framework to ensure that the right policy framework is in place to support all of this, and that the need is demonstrated in an appropriate way.
Alongside just being a transport project, I think there's a real focus on the fact that this is also a housing project, unlocking housing, that being one of the kind of critical needs for London going forward. I suppose the only other thing I would just pick up on, which I think is relevant to boroughs and local government, is a point around how you gain the powers for this. Yeah. I think the hybrid bill, I completely agree, the hybrid bill mechanism is very much focused on delivering a transport project. And thinking about if this becomes more than just a transport project, what powers are needed to unlock that, and do those powers exist?
And it's how you get from this helpful recommendation, a strong recommendation, to providing a framework that gives confidence to investors and to others to plan strategically for this. And again, there's a question mark around what that strategic planning looks like. And I think it probably picks up on points that Mike and Michael raised earlier. Is there a need for some sort of regional level planning here to actually deliver this?
With every stage that a scheme progresses, the land value continues to rise and the certainty continues to increase, and therefore developers start to speculate more and more on the prospects of that project coming forward. As it becomes more realistic, more inevitably going to happen, then you do start to invest more in that corridor. And to Colin's point, land values from your perspective are being lost.
We haven't got the right tools, and the system is set up to work against that and to work in the interest of landowners to speculate and make money, which is fine in the short term, but in the long term, UK PLC do not benefit from that.
Because we're driving down a road which is so clear and which has been discussed for so long, what you don't want to get into is the idea that this has been debated for a while, but it hasn't been conclusively proved from a policy perspective that it's what we want. So we've tried to engineer the conclusion in a way which is subsequently open to attack. And it being subsequently open to attack just gets kicked into the long grass.
But I think in a planning sense, two of the recommendations that you've already mentioned, the one about interconnectors connecting other countries, and the one about storage, both would have implications on the planning system.
We're using storage a lot in the country already for gas and petrol and coal, so much more sort of fossil fuel. So there is a real opportunity to harness that for other generation technologies, and there are opportunities within our existing power stations where those can go, and the permitted development regulations should enable that to happen. I think there are probably further opportunities to look at the permitted development regulations to enable it to be rolled out further outside of existing power stations. And it is a real issue to get the understanding within the local authorities and the communities. Much more these bits of kit will be close to people's houses, much more than nuclear power stations, which are quite remote, and people are quite comfortable with that. So there's a real education I think we're going to need.
The planning policy hasn't really kept up with storage, and nor has energy policy, and we still think in terms of megawatts and peak rather than megawatt hours. For example, I could build for you on this tabletop with a 500 volt transformer, a 1 farad capacitor and a resistor for under £1,000, a capacitor that would pulse energy into the grid at a rate of over 50 megawatts and would therefore qualify as a nationally significant infrastructure project. So without a kind of more balanced approach to what is a storage facility and without understanding that, we're vulnerable to putting projects through disproportionate systems.
I think it's pretty much been covered very well by Carly, but I mean, you read the report, there's nothing you can really disagree with in terms of the direction of flow. I think as Carly and Hector touched on, it's then how it's delivered, because this is the starting point. It's then got to feed down through regulations and however else, what other policy frameworks will be required to enable things to happen on the ground.
At the moment, the national policy statements for energy don't really deal with storage. It's mentioned in passing, and one of the helpful things from this report is that there is a clear, it's not quite expressed as a statement of need, but there's a key finding which is very supportive of storage, which I think is helpful, but also points towards the needs for a proper overhaul of the national policy statement on storage to deal with some of the issues that Dave is talking about.